Hello, my name is Kayla. I am a school-based speech-language pathologist, and I'm also the owner of Kayla SLP on Teachers Pay Teachers. I'm here today to show you how you can use visual cues and verbal cues to help your student produce their speech sounds. So what I'm going to do is go through a list of all the common speech sounds that SLPs work on, and then show you the common cues that SLPs use to help students produce these sounds. Now we give these visual and verbal cues and reminders just as a hint for the student to remember how to produce the sound, where the sound's coming from, what their mouth needs to do to make the sound, and so on. So I hope you find this helpful. Here goes. So the first sound that we're going to work on today is B or B. When we make this sound, I often point to my lips, B, to show the student how our lips go together, B, then open to make the sound. So when your child or your student is making this sound, they're going to have to build the pressure up in their mouth, B, and release. Now we often call B the bouncing sound. So for example, I have a picture of a basketball to go along with the B sound. So you might say B, 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 or point to your mouth, whatever your child, your student prefers. But we do like to point to the mouth just to show lips together, B, lips open to make that sound. The second sound we're going to work on is the CH sound. So teachers would call this sound a digraph, and it is. It's two sounds put together, but we consider it one sound in speech therapy. So for example, ch, we say ch. Our teeth go together, ch, and then open to make the sound. So I often take my hand, ch, just to show that sound is built up and then pops out. And we often call this the CHOO-CHOO sound because CHOO-CHOO has that sound in it twice. The next sound that we're going to work on is D or D. This is called the drumming sound. So you may say D, 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 and act like you're drumming, or you may take your finger and go D, 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 because when you make that sound, your tongue is actually going up to touch the roof of the mouth. So you may say D, D, D for the drumming sound D. The next sound would be F or Now there's a variety of cues that you can use for this. I've seen because you're blowing air out. I often just tap my bottom lip to emphasize where the lip is compared to the teeth. So the top teeth actually lightly touch the bottom lip for that sound. So I like to take my finger because often when you're working on these sounds, your student will watch where your finger is moving. So if I take my finger for emphasis and say, don't forget, bite your lip, they're watching to see where my teeth are in relation to my lips. And you can always use that cue, bite your lip. I use that all the time and it works pretty well. Now we call this the windy sound because when you're making this sound, you are making wind. You're blowing it out, making that wind, so F is the windy sound. The next sound is G or G. Now we call this the gulping sound, and kids love to do this. You may say, okay, when you're making your gulping sound, don't forget G, G, G. And you can even G, 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 like you're taking a drink, you're gulping down some water. So it just reminds them that the sound is coming from the back of their throat, just like it would be if you were swallowing or gulping something down, which is why we take our hand and we put it here. You can actually feel your throat move when you make the gulping sound, or G, 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 g. And it reminds them that their tongue, g, 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 is kind of back a little bit. And you can always tell your child or your student, remember, your tongue does not go up, because a lot of students want to make the g sound into a d sound, where that tongue goes up. And I may also call this sound the tongue down sound. Keep your tongue down, g, 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 when you make your G sound or your gulping sound. The next sound would be H or H. Now we use our hand in front of our mouth because you can actually feel the air blow onto your hand when you do it this way. And we call this the laughing sound. So you may say, when you say H, remember, ha, 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 or ha, ha, ha. And it makes that sound where you can feel it on your hand, and it also looks like you're laughing. Ha, ha, ha. So the next sound would be J, or the jumping sound. J, j, j. This one students really love doing because I let them get up and jump a little bit when they're saying the sound, and I may show them whenever I jump, and you say it's like you're jumping on a trampoline. J, j, j. So when you make the J sound, or the J, j, jumping sound, have your students stand up and jump along with you to practice the sound. The next sound is K, K, the coughing sound. This one is almost exactly the same as G, or the gulping sound, G, except your voice is turned off. So for G, you're saying G, G, and your voice is turned on. K, 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 is made the exact same way. Back of the throat, tongue is down, back of the tongue is up a little bit to make that sound. So you can call that the coughing sound, like k, 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 something's hung in my throat. Or you can also just say it's a back sound because it is made in the back of the throat. And you can put your hand on your throat to show this is where the sound will be coming from. The next sound is L, and we call L the singing sound. La la la. So when you're working on L with your student, I often will take my finger and say la, 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 and I show them. And I'm only saying these 3 times each because la is so fast you might miss it. But if you do it 3 times in a row, the student really has time to watch the repetition of what you're doing with your mouth. So la, la, la. And I put my finger up because your tongue is going up. And some students may touch the front of their teeth, oh. Some may touch right behind their teeth, oh. It doesn't matter, but the point is that tongue tip needs to be going up. So often these students' L's are going to W's, ooh, which does not, you can't, if you show them your finger going up, you can say, ooh, I didn't see your tongue go up when you said, ooh. So let's try that again with tongue up sound, ooh. Or these students may say, yeah, where they're smiling, yeah. And you say, oh, I didn't see your tongue go up. So it just kind of gives them a reminder of, oh, tongue up sound, or the singing sound, la la la. The next sound is M, or and we call this the humming sound because it's the same face you're going to make when you're humming. And again, I often just point to my lips on this one because there's really no cue like to show what your tongue is doing in this sound. Most of the time, if you just show your student that their lips are touching together, you can also do this. I've done this before. Show that their lips are together and their voice is turned on to make that humming sound for M. The next sound is and we call this the nose sound because when you say the sound comes from your nose. For example, if you're trying to say but your nose is plugged, nothing really comes out. So we call this the nose sound, And I often just, have them again look at my mouth, or I may point to my nose and say, don't forget, this is that nose sound. Your sound is coming from your nose. Your teeth are together, your lips are a little bit open. The next sound is P or P, the popping sound. This one is almost the same as B, so I often use the same cue, B, P. The only difference is your voice is turned off with the P sound. And I've also, with some of my younger students, I may say P, P, P to show like bubbles are popping. So again, it just depends on what kind of cue your child or your student needs. But if they need that visual cue of what their lips are doing, P is great because it's showing hold that in, P, pop it out. Or if they just need a reminder from like the bubble visual, P, 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 that's the popping sound. This next one is the trickiest of all sounds, especially for parents who are trying to help their students at home. It's the R sound. There are so many variations of R. So what I'm going to talk about today mostly is just showing you how to help your child or your student produce that beginning R sound in a word. We often call it the growling sound, because it sounds like a bear is growling at you. So what I suggest for you to help your child at home or for you to help your student is to tell them to smile like they love their R sound more than anything in the world. And that always gets a laugh on them because students often do not like the R sound. So we smile, teeth together, lips wide, and it sort of pulls your tongue up in the position to where it needs to be. Because often these students are wanting to make the W sound. So red would be wed. Now watch when I say it, red, wed. My lips kind of do the same thing. Now it's hard for these students to see, especially your really younger ones who may be working on this sound, just starting out, what exactly is going on in the mouth with that sound. So what I suggest is, even though we often say red, our lips go round, is having them smile because it kind of pulls their tongue back where it needs to be. So if they're just starting out, smile, red, because it's hard to say wed, led whenever you're smiling. That's why I tell them, I say, listen, if you love your R's, you have to smile when you say them because otherwise you're going to start saying wed, and that's not what you're trying to say. So just, tell your child, smile like you love your R's, red, to say that R sound. The next sound that I want to talk about is S, and this is the snake sound. So it's what we call a long sound. So we're going to go S all the way down the arm. Now I also tell the students, teeth together, S, keeps that tongue from coming out for a lisp like F. So teeth together, S, hand up here, S, all the way down the arm because we don't want it to turn into a T sound. Because T wouldn't make it all the way down our arm. So it has to be long like a snake, which is why we call it the snake sound. It's also, you can call it the hissing sound because the snake hisses. But if you see your student sticking their tongue out from their teeth, you can say, okay, this is our snake sound or our hissing sound. Make sure that snake does not leave the cage, and your cage would be the teeth. So keep the snake in the cage and make it long for the S sound. The next sound is the SH sound or shh. We call this sound the quiet sound because it looks like you're telling somebody to hush. So when I practice this sound with my students, I will say shh. Lips are round, fingers up like you're telling someone to be quiet. Shh. It's not an S sound like S, where we're smiling a little and our teeth are together. Our lips are round, teeth are almost together. Shh. Air blows out. The quiet sound. Shh. The next sound is T, or the ticking sound. T, t, t. Now I often use the same cue for T and D just by pointing here, t, 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 or t, 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 showing that your tongue is going up. T and D are made in the exact same spots of the mouth. T, D. Same spot, but D has your voice turned on and T has your voice turned off. So again, for that ticking sound, T, it sounds like a clock is ticking. T, t, t. And it's a short sound. So you can always say, it's a short sound. T, t, t. Make sure your tongue's going up to make that ticking sound for T. The next sound is the TH sound. Now there's two variations. There's voiced or voiceless, like think, or like then. So what I often show my students for this sound is it's a tongue sandwich sound because your tongue sticks out just a little bit. Now I don't want my students going because that does not make a good TH sound. So I always take my finger and I just kind of show up on my face just a little bit. Now say make a sandwich with your teeth. Bread, bread, and in the middle is your fixins. So, you got your ham and cheese in the middle and you got your bread and your bread. Just like this. That makes the TH sound, the tongue sandwich sound. The next sound is V. This sound is just like F, except your voice is turned on for V. So again, this is called the vacuum sound, but I often just point to that bottom lip because that's where the main thing is happening in your mouth that your child needs to see. Your top teeth touch your bottom lip, makes that V sound. And again, like with F where we did, you can also say same thing, you're still blowing the air out. The only difference is you have your voice turned on. The next sound is W, or woo. And we call this the blowing sound because it sounds like a hairdryer is blowing. Woo. It's louder than some of our other sounds that blow the air, like woo is the loudest. So your mouth is round, and you can circle your mouth whenever you're showing your child or your student how to make this sound. Ooh, I've got my mouth round for the blowing sound. Ooh. The next sound is ya, or the yo-yo sound. So for ya, I often go yeah, 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 because my mouth opens just a little bit when I say that sound, yeah, yeah, and it just kind of shows where your chin is going. Again, you can use anything, but yeah, 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 and this is where you want the sides of their tongue touching the sides of their back teeth. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The yo-yo sound. You can also, use the yo-yo motion, so you can say yeah, yeah, yeah. If your child doesn't really need that placement cue for in their mouth anymore, they just need kind of a verbal hint like, okay, use your yo-yo sound, and just show them the yo-yo motion for that sound. And the next sound is Z, or the buzzing sound. So I often use the same cue as I did for S. Z. It's the exact same sound except your voice is turned on. So again, you want teeth closed, tongue behind teeth, zzz, voice turned on to make that sound. And you can always remind them, make sure your tongue is behind your teeth, the snake is in the cage, or for this one we call it the buzzing sound, like a bee. You could say, keep the bee in your mouth. Whatever you want to do, just a reminder to keep those teeth closed, long sound, zzz, for the buzzing sound, Z. So for this last little bit, I'm going to talk about how I practice blends with my students because they're not just one sound, they're two sounds put together. So L blends like flower has an F and an L. R blends like brown has a B and a R, or S blends like star has an S and a T. So it depends on the age of your child, the age of your student, but often I will either show 2 fingers and just say, remember 2 sounds. And this one might work best for older students, but like star. If you're just saying sar, I'm not getting the t. You can even write the sounds on their fingers, star, so they can actually see the S and the T and when they come together. And if they don't say one of the sounds, then they're not using that finger and they know they've forgotten something. Now for S blends for my younger students, I will often use this cue. So like star again, this will be the long sound because they already have practiced long sounds with me by this point usually, and my hand will be the second sound. Now you can put a sticker on their hand or you can write the letter on their hand. I don't usually, because usually I'm giving them the model and they're just repeating after me to begin with, but when they become more independent you may want to do something. But I just often say, don't forget 2 sounds. One is long, one is short. And so for star, the student would say star, and they just hit their hand or tap their hand, star, for that second sound. And that way, if they're saying sar, they never got to touch their hand. Or if they're saying tar, you can remind them, I didn't hear your long sound, I didn't hear your hissing or snake sound or whatever it is. Make sure that you're using your long sound first. Star. Now you can use the same thing for L blends or R blends. I often will emphasize the second sound personally whenever I'm working on those. So for L blends, I may say lower. Don't forget your L. Lower. And I'm using that visual cue for the L. Lower. Or for the R blends, again, I may say brown. And I'll have them overemphasize when we're just starting out to make that R sound. Brown. So I'm not just saying bound, because they're not actually making that smile, or they're not saying brown and they're making that W sound. So I'm like, okay, don't forget to smile. Brown, and we kind of pull it back. Now after a while, once they get better at it, we fade that cue. So I'm not having, don't worry, your child will not be forever saying brown and looking strange as an adult. That's not going to happen. But it is at the beginning important just so your child or your student remembers to use that sound in their speech. So just to kind of recap some of the sounds that we talked about some sounds that were made just by holding pressure in the mouth, b, p, and blowing that sound out. We talked about some sounds that were made by biting that lip. We talked about some sounds that were long, s, z, and also are also long sounds. So if that's something your students having trouble with and they're saying, like instead of far, they're saying tar, they're not making that long, they're making it short like t, then you can say, okay, make sure that sounds long. Remember, it's got to go all the way down your arm when you say that sound. We also talked about some sounds that were just putting your lips together, and coming out the nose, We talked about sounds we love, like our R's, that make us smile. We talked about sounds that make our tongue go up, l, t, d. And we talked about sounds that were just kind of didn't fall into really another category that matches with other sounds, but like the jumping sound, j, 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 or y, y, y. And we also talked about those back sounds, k, g, that come from the back of the throat. So I hope this video helped you. I just wanted you guys to be able to see sort of what I'm doing in speech therapy with my students and the cues that I'm using, so that when it comes time for you to help them at home, you sort of have an idea of what we've been working on, and so you can follow along with the same cues that we're doing, because your child already knows the cues that I've showed them if it's a sound that they're working on. So feel free to ask me any questions. I will put my information in the contact box on YouTube. But I hope this helps, and have a great day.